Hello.
Good evening, Anthony. Good evening, Graham. Sunday night, and more slugs making life a misery in the garden.
Slugs are good for the ecosystem,
Which bit of the ecosystem, Graham?
the bottom bit, and everything starts at the bottom, Charles.
Oh, blimey, Graham, that's a hell of a start. I like to think we elevate ourselves upwards, away from slugs.
Yeah, but it's obvious there's no top without a bottom.
Yeah, well, right now on the plants, there's no top nor bottom. Graham, what is the
Well,
point of a slug?
I saw a program on television once for about 15 minutes, which makes me an expert on environmental and biological matters. And they seem to be necessary for some insects, which are then necessary for some birds, which are necessary for some
Correct. Well,
bees.
blackbirds
It all spirals out.
You're right. Blackbirds like eating slugs. It's just
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've been growing these potatoes for the first time. I've come back today ruined.
Well,
What is the point?
is this like the Second World War? You're growing your own potatoes now.
It's a joyful thing to
Graham.
It's a joyful thing to be attempting, but to be outthought and outwitted by a slug as a life form, it's not really reassuring for me. I didn't feel.
Well, there is a band called Slug that I saw
I was
once,
about to ask
quite
you.
enjoyed. Yeah,
that's because I thought, surely there's bound to be a band called Slug. Where are they from? Who are they?
Well, my memory cells, my little grey cells, are sort of declining, and it sort of rings a bell that might be linked to field music in Sunderland, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they never made it very far. Obviously, they stayed at the bottom, and that was it. So it's not exactly a name destined for stardom, is it?
No, but you can be good and be at the bottom. This is the whole thing. And if you look at the way the music industry works now, you can be very good and be still fairly near the bottom.
That is indeed true, Graham. And which brings us actually to our first topic of the night. We spent a night in each other's company firstly in the Phoenix, and what a wonderful pub as ever that is. Fabulous pork pies, and an absolute joy to be in the garden there. Before going in to see Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets, which to all intents and purposes is not a Pink Floyd tribute act. It's far more than that. It's authentic, and we'll come on to that. But it's a kind of old man's evening because you also went to see, with Sarah, you went to see Foo Fighters in Manchester. And this was in 2 successive days that you did this. So, Graham, as you asked the question, who won? I was only at one of these occasions, not the other. So I can only share my views of. I found it a very enlightening evening. The Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets. I'd never seen any form of Pink Floyd show, not even an Australian Pink Floyd tribute show. Never any of the solo shows. So this was my initiation into the world of Pink Floyd, and I guess that's part of its purpose. I mean, it couldn't be more authentic, could it?
Led by an 8-year-old drummer, Nick Mason himself, playing to an audience whose average age is probably about 55. It was fantastic because when you hear the songs that aren't recognized classic songs in general, but are sprawling, adventurous, mainly instrumental pieces, you realize just how amazing Pink Floyd before Dark Side of the Moon truly were.
That was, as I say, for me, that was an initiation, and it was good to have you in the next door seat, being able to tell me what. I mean, I recognised the Syd Barrett tracks, which is very telling in its own way, or at least the most familiar of the Arnold Lane, obviously, and See Emily Play. And I thought one of the things I loved about it was the real care taken over the way the show was put together, and part of that was the keyboard player. Had managed to extract the vocals of Syd Barrett from I think before they even released an album. So a song called, if I'm remembering it correctly, just a demo from Remember Me. And so we had Syd's vocals playing over their interpretation of the song. And in its own way, actually, I mean, that's remarkable on one level, because I love the wonders of technology that's been able to enable that to happen. But to have something like that, no other opportunity to hear it, first time being able to do so, that's one of the joys of concert going, the unexpected, something like that within the show, let alone it's still a shock value to see Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet turning into a prop rock god. I mean, that's a shock in itself.
Well, he was a bit more like David Bowie fronts up Pink Floyd, because
Yes, yes.
Spandau Ballet and Duran Duran liked Bowie, and his vocal style was more actually David Bowie than it was Syd Barrett or Roger Waters or David Gilmour. But he was very good. He was a great frontman. But the heart of the band, apart from Guy Pratt, the bass player and the band leader, unofficially, who played in the Pink Floyd David Gilmour version from the 80s onwards,
Yes,
so he
yes.
knows his stuff. Is Nick Mason. Although he's 80 and starting to creak physically for sure, you can tell it means an awful lot to him. So there's a lot of heart and soul goes into the versions. They're not like, academically, professionally produced versions. They're from the heart.
I also, I mean, he had a lovely, gentle humor about the whole evening. There was self-deprecation in that. There was an amusing little dig at Roger Waters that we all enjoyed. That was
Apart
all
from
part of
Roger.
the pleasure of it. And I just love seeing the pleasure that he was taking in performing, and he seemed genuinely touched by what was a pretty busy York Barbican that night. I'm not saying that that he got over emotional or whatever, but clearly his appreciation of everyone's appreciation of this music, music before. I mean, to call Dark Side of the Moon a breakthrough album is a ridiculous notion, but obviously that album took Pink Floyd to a whole nother level from what they had been before. And yet, actually, with the
Yeah.
aficionados of the band, they are going to be appreciating what was being played here, which included, I think, from what you were saying, soundtrack album tracks, for example, as well as, I think in all it was five Syd Barrett tracks, including opening the second set with the Scarecrow.
I thought the Syd Barrett tracks, although they were essential to the show, partly to reflect Pink Floyd's early years, but also they are pop, which is why they originally had a few hits. But the best moments of the show and the crowd reaction was best was like the longer, more atmospheric, more out there tracks like Set the Control for Hearts of the Sun and Echoes. And when the band was like doing longer atmospheric numbers, which still sound otherworldly all these years later, which is quite incredible to think they still sound out there. That's when the audience responded most, and that's what made it a truly great show. It's like these tracks, which are 50 years old or more, they still sound on the outer edges of music.
They do. I mean, there were two influences that struck me. One, which wasn't particularly expected, which was Blur, and in particular Graham Coxon's work from some early Pink Floyd musicianship was apparent. That was an eye opener in itself, and of course we know that subsequently as well the influence on krautrock from Germany was there as well. So the bigger influences, if you like, came obviously with Dark Side of the Moon, one of the biggest of all albums, and the shadow of that Forever and a Day. But to hear the music, how it progressed, how Pink Floyd got to that stage, which is, I think, was the illuminating element of the show, was beautifully shown to us in the show, I thought.
Well, also, you can't really imagine Mogwai without Pink Floyd.
No.
All the atmosphere, all the dramatics, all the quiet and loud, all the slow build up, all the abstract nature of Mogwai songs, but still there's a sort of emotional heart, undefined at the middle of it all. You can't imagine that without Pink Floyd's more adventurous music between the years 1967 and 71. And by the time that the Dark Side of the Moon, that side of their music was starting to fade away because it became more and more cohesive and more, apart from Shining Your Crazy Diamond on Wish You Were Here, they became more of a straightforward song-based band. And I think their influence on music after that isn't as big as, ironically, before they got really famous.
When we were chatting after the show, you made a very good point about how the song structures kept building and building without actually finding melody for a long, long time. And then finally, they would have a blissful melodic release at the end of a song, which again would link, I guess, strongly with the work of Mogwai that you were mentioning. That as well relies on an audience appreciating that too, going along with that form of music building, which is alien, if you like, to most modern music making now. Would not tread that path, would not have that sense of experimentation, would not have that boldness of as you use that word, the otherworldly approach to it.
Yeah, you're right. And you still get bands who do that live, but they don't sell many records.
No.
And you've got to remember that Pink Floyd, before Dark Side of the Moon, had 3 #1 British albums.
Yes.
So although they weren't huge at all, they were big in Britain. They got big in Britain, but doing anything daily commercial. They were getting more adventurous after Sid, and they got bigger in Britain by doing it. And that's what doesn't happen anymore.
Now, the second concert that you went, the following night, you swapped Yorkshire for Lancashire, and you were in Manchester to see Foo Fighters, and you were at Old Trafford. I try and remember whether you were at that god-awful football ground or at the rather wonderful cricket ground, that full of red cricket ground.
Well, exactly, yeah. And if you think that when we watched Pink Floyd the night before with Nick Mason, it was impossibly romantic. I mean, it was striving for moments of transcendence in glorious discoveries. Well, Foo Fighters is the exact opposite. I mean, a look on them is like a full English breakfast. You know, it's very tasty, it's very substantial, but God, it's heavy, and God, it's stodgy, and that's what Foo Fighters like. They're like, whereas Pink Floyd looked for the sublime, at least it used to look for the sublime. Foo Fighters looked to connect with the obvious the whole time, so it was a complete contrast to the night before.
Is that a more immediately emotional contact then? I mean, there is at the height of those Pink Floyd songs, one did. I guess there's an academic and almost a scientific participation in the songs earlier on, and it does at its end become blissful. But in the case of Foo Fighters, as you say, it lays it on thick emotionally, song by song, moment by moment. That's always been the case, and so. As the stage that Foo Fighters are at now, as they're one of the biggest live draws. What is it that's made them that? Because if you look back to Nirvana, obviously that's Kurt Cobain's band, but what's happened with Dave Grohl since then? It's a remarkable story in its own way. How hugely successful he's become with Foo Fighters, and also a great storyteller. I mean, he's written his own autobiography. He's an excellent, and he's an excellent guest on when he does interviews on primetime television or whatever. So he's become much more than just a cult figure, it seems to me. I mean, he's a major staple of the rock world now.
Well, he's a true believer in the power of rock and the meaning of rock and the glory of rock. He's like Bruce Springsteen, except much heavier. They both believe in rock and roll. Is a spiritual movement almost, and is the salvation of their own lives and their audience's life. So that helps. That's helped make him big. He really wants to connect with the audience because he believes in the power of music. But what's also helped is that, unlike Nirvana, who in some ways Foo Fighters' music's still a bit like, he's positive, not negative.
Yes.
In Nirvana, we're bracingly honest, which when you're bracingly honest, you're going to be negative. Yeah. And on top of that, they're also happy to be a bit weird. There's nothing weird about Dave Grohl. There's nothing weird about Foo Fighters. There's big fat tunes there that they're like a sort of American big country. If you go back to the 1980s, you know, it's all big broad brushstrokes. But what I think the real key to them is that it's a very macho, very male band, and Dave likes to act like he's a strong bloke, but he's also got a tender side and a sense of humor that keeps on slipping out. And it's that push and pull between the obvious and the macho-ness and the toughness, which Foo Fighters have most of the time. And that little bit of tenderness, that little bit of emotion, that little bit of vulnerability, that he's like the tough guy that all the girls know is actually a bit of a softie inside. He's that sort of bloke. And that's what Foo Fighters do musically. They sound tough, but you can tell they're not really hard at all. They're not Black Sabbath. You know, they're a pop band version of Black Sabbath, and I think that's why they've been so big for so many years now.
How much is that an American thing, Graham, rather than a British thing as well?
Well, I don't think being a showbiz hard rock band is a necessarily American thing.
No.
In fact, I think the British virtually invented it with Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, and the Australians piled in with AC/DC. Although AC/DC's roots are as much Scottish. as Australian. So the Americans didn't invent it, but the Americans took to it like a fish to water because it's basically showbiz. AC/DC are showbiz, they're not art. Whereas when we saw Nick Mason's Saucerful Secrets, there was art involved there, as well as just enjoyable entertainment. But AC/DC, the Foo Fighters, they're not about art. Even if there's some artistry involved occasionally, they're about connecting with the audience, everybody having a great time. They're about big emotions in big songs. And that's the difference between Pink Floyd night and the Foo Fighters night.
The other emotional element, I guess, would be the absence, of course, of one of the great drummers. And who replaced, who came in, and how did that work? Because
I should have researched that. He's a guy who's been in so many big bands over many years.
Okay.
He actually looked older than Taylor Hawkins, but his drumming was unbelievable. He was a powerhouse drummer who was playing like a man possessed from the very beginning, and you can tell the audience warmed to him because as soon as he started, he got a standing ovation, and he got when the band was introduced by Dave, they all got huge reactions, but the biggest reaction was really for the drummer because it was partly a tribute to the late Taylor Hawkins. It was also a tribute to the fact the new drummer, whose name I haven't got at my fingertips, was just immense. My God, if you plugged him into the national grid, he could have powered Manchester for the evening.
As you talk and keep talking, I'm going to try and I'm putting in the question: who is
Foo Fighters' new drummer?
Foo Fighters.
He's vastly experienced. He's drummed for loads of big bands.
Drummer. So, did they do a tribute to Mr. Hawkins?
No, there was no.
That was on the last tour they did that, basically, didn't they? The first,
Also, I think Dave's keen to move on. He had to decide, am I going to give up on Foo Fighters altogether? I'm going to make it a sort of funeral tour about Taylor, and being Dave Grohl, he's not going to do that. He's going to go onwards and he's going to go forward, just like Paul McCartney would always go onwards and forward. And although he respects the past, Paul McCartney's not going to live there. And neither is his great buddy Dave Grohl, and they are quite good friends.
So the new drummer is called Josh Freese. Freese. He is a session drummer. Recently played with Offspring on tour. And so that's who the replacement is for Taylor Hawkins.
He's also played in the past with Devo, Nine Inch Nails, and there's another big band he played with regularly. I've forgotten who the hell it is now. But yeah, he's no just normal session guy. He plays with any old band. He's like prime.
So I guess we come to the crucial question, Graham. Who won between Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets and Foo Fighters?
Well, like all great hard rock bands, in a 2.5-hour set, I personally think there was only 6 great songs. And if you look at the history of proper hard rock bands like Deep Purple, AC/DC, I mean, would you want a 6 CD box set of Deep Purple or AC/DC?
No.
Whereas if you listen to the Beatles or the Stones or the Kinks or the Who, or any band that isn't hard rock that was a truly great band and truly successful worldwide, just like Deep Purple and like the Foo Fighters, you would happily listen to a 5 CD box set or 6 CD box set of those bands because they've got each of those bands did at least 100 very good songs. But in the world of hard rock, it's very hard when hard rock's just based on big riffs. It's not really about song construction. It's very hard for any great hard rock band to come up with more than 20 great songs. So the Foo Fighters, to my mind, only had 6 great moments in the whole set. But the 6 great moments did restore your faith in rock and roll. To watch a crowd of 40, 50,000 react in a spontaneous way, and because the crowd weren't youngsters, they were from between about 20 years old to about 55 years old, they were very genuine in the reactions. Dave tried to pull the strings, but the crowd was behaving the way they want to behave. But when he played All My Life of One by One album, or One to One album, to see almost the whole crowd leaping around on the spot or shouting or punching the air in their own haphazard way. They weren't like some sort of mass audience who were doing it pantomime style by rotation, like a formula. It was a completely spontaneous reaction. To see that many people reacting with such immediate emotional warmth and reaction to a band on stage, it was like, good grief, this is what the golden age of rock and roll that all the critics write about in Mojo and Uncut. That's what it was like, except it's actually in the present. So that was an amazing moment.
Yeah, and it's fair to say, actually, Graham, there are very few bands that can take audiences to those kind of heights. Festivals are always looking for headliners, and often the answer to the question is Foo Fighters.
Mm. Well, yeah. What's the question? Because the answer is always Foo Fighters. So
The
yeah, I
question
mean,
is, where the bloody hell are some new acts to headline festivals? The answer is no, Foo Fighters.
a very good point. Because even Arctic Monkeys, who could do that sort of thing,
Mm,
chose not to do so because they've only really got the songs on 3 or 4 albums to do that. And when
yeah.
they play live, because they've grown so much artistically, especially the last decade, they
Mm,
don't like playing that role of crowd pleasing
no.
and just connect with the crowd. There's a little bit of Brian Wilson and Alex Turner. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of Scott Walker and Alex Turner. He doesn't want
Mm,
to be Dave Grohl. The great thing
no.
about Dave Grohl is he does want to be Dave Grohl. He can't do any better job than being Dave Grohl.
Absolutely. So a choice, Graham, between Phil Collins going from drumming to leading a band, or Dave Grohl going from being the drummer to fronting his own operation. Who are you going to go for?
On a night out, to have a great night out for half
Mm,
an hour, I'd pick Foo Fighters for half an
yeah.
hour. But if I had to live with a band on a desert island and I wasn't allowed to live with one band's music
Mm.
in no other band, I would not live on that island with Foo Fighters because
Interesting.
it's too stodgy, it's too obvious, there's not enough nutrients.
No.
So I'd rather have Pink Floyd or even
Yeah.
1970s Genesis.
Well, there's the answer. So ultimately, I think it's two forms of victory here, really, isn't it? It's kind of a split vote. Difficult.
Well,
Difficult.
it's horses. It's if we're
It,
going to get into
horses for
cliches over and
courses.
over again,
Horses for
it's
courses.
horses for courses. Depends what you want. If you want a Big Mac and fries, you're going to go to Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
If you want like some sort of fine dining with the
Yeah.
occasional, you know, side order of big chips, well, you're going to go for Pink Floyd.
But they wouldn't be called chips, would they?
Now they wouldn't be called chips, certainly not.
Pomfret. So right, so it's basically. I'm not saying it's a draw between the two of them, but I think we've seen both evenings had considerable merit. Now, from two things that might be considered sort of old rock to new musical, and we'll come on to our third topic later. But I went to. Well, I say it's a new musical. I mean, it's new to me and it's new to New York audiences, and it's new to the scale that it's now on. But this is a musical called Unfortunate: The Untold Story of Ursula the Sea Witch. Now, Ursula the Sea Witch is the villainous character who is given a Disney disservice, of course, in The Little Mermaid. And this, in the tradition of Wicked, giving an alternative, in the tradition of Tom Stoppard giving Guildenstern and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern center stage, or in the world of Stephen Sondheim with Into the Woods, playing around with characters that we know and putting them in new situations. The writers here, which are two writers plus a composer. The two writers are Robin Grant, who also directs, and Daniel Fox. They write both the book and the lyrics. And then the music is by Tim Gilvin. And this show started essentially with a group of East 15 acting school students. I know Robin from when she was performing in York in her young days. She's from Leeds originally, and she's used York to open up shows. She had a company called Fat Rascal Theatre, which she broke new material with. This show starts at the Edinburgh Fringe with Robin herself in the lead role of Ursula. And it's now at a level where the cast is twice as big, gone from 5 to 10. The staging has gone from having a comparatively small stage, including, I think, a prop of a fish of some sort, to having wholly bigger production values. And I guess in the way that Six has propelled to the level that Six is now pretty much the ubiquitous musical. I'm not saying that this is exactly going to happen with Unfortunate the musical, but it's had a 10-week run at the Southwark Playhouse in London. It's now on a national tour. And what I think is really reassuring is it's had support from the Birmingham Hippodrome, I think it was. It's also had support from Curve Leicester. And so we have seen within the arc of how you can take theatre to high levels in this country from a completely standing start. It's really, really pleasing to see this happening to a new musical and the
Charles,
level that it's got
this
to.
this all sounds fantastic in terms of like the progress from from a small acorn a mighty oak emerges.
Yeah.
I like that, but it is only a musical.
Graham, it's almost ridiculous these days to say it's only a musical because one of the most successful art forms in the country. I mean, apart from Taylor Swift having playing to massive audiences.
Hold your horses there. Art form. Hold your horses.
You're being harsh. You're being harsh on musicals, Graham.
Most musicals are like a 1970s middle of the road pop hit, i.e., very enjoyable, but you wouldn't call them an art form.
I think you would call them an art form. I think you'd be insulting Stephen Sondheim in particular and Bernstein to suggest that they're not an art form. I think you'd be also insulting Rodgers and Hammerstein.
We get to the nub of the question here. Is Unfortunate up to the level of Sondheim and Bernstein?
So the songwriting is energetic, playful, amusing. There aren't the pop bangers on a level that's obviously to match the greats of the past, but there is plenty of joy within the songs, and they actually do have hooks within them, which is appropriate for something involving being under the sea. It's also what's novel about this piece is that it's basically a queer musical. It's looking at life from that perspective. So it's if you like, it's a reaction piece. It's a riposte to Disney's attitudes towards stereotyping of the princess role, towards stereotyping of the villain's role. And it's a breath of fresh air from that point of view. I should also say it's filthy rude, if that's not grammatically incorrect. It is a potty mouth show. She is full of potty mouth put downs, this character, played by a New York actress called Shauna Hamich, who's coming over here from off-Broadway, making her British stage debut. Absolutely larger than life in every way as a performer. It's fun, it's energetic, it's rude, it's filthy, it's playful. It actually has serious points probably to also make about, if you like, those who are wrongly categorized and pigeonholed. I'm not saying it's a revenge piece. It is just showing in a different light certain characters that are stereotyped in Disney, and actually it's looking at the underbelly and turning them over and saying, well, actually, let's look at them from a different perspective. And it's refreshingly cheeky in doing that. It's very resourceful. It's a lot of fun. The characters, which are caricatures, but they are full of character. Lots of the characters, not just the lead role of Ursula. It's full of fun characters. And in many ways, Disney does need responses, and it's good to do something as bold as this. I mean, Disney has not objected in any way to this musical. That's interesting. That's the case, and because it's a parody musical, and actually states that on the front, musical parody. Disney's not in a position to object to the fact that underneath it all, there is clearly some Mickey taking of the stereotypes.
Mickey taking, like it.
Yeah, I thought that this was something I knew very little about it. I interviewed Robin about it and interviewed Shauna about it, and you can sense that for both of them. I mean, obviously for Robin, it's very much a passion project. This, but she's an audacious writer director already. If you're going to have a piece about the history of the vibrator called Buzz as one of the first pieces that you've done as a musical, you kind of get where Robin is coming from. She's fresh and original, and also, I have to say, she's incredibly driven. I gave it 4 stars. She sent me notes saying, Charles, why not 5 stars? Tell us the reasons.
Good point. Yeah. And what did you say, Charles?
I very rarely give 5 stars. Part of that is because I think there has to be room always to stretch further. She sent me back a very telling line. I will never settle for not the best. And that's what I wanted to hear from her, because I think that shows that, I mean, look, there's a lot that's really, really good about this
Charles,
show.
you know what your problem is? We're living in a world where the era of criticism in the arts in Britain and America, the great era of like judging things by the high standards and telling the absolute truth, well, that stopped about 25, 30 years ago. So everything gets 4 stars now, unless you're absolute rubbish.
We've seen that with we've seen that in the verdicts in Mojo and Uncut with album reviews. How many of those get 4 stars?
Exactly.
My thing is actually how often now you see 5 stars, and I just think it leaves you nowhere to go if you endlessly give 5 stars. There have been a couple of shows I've seen this year that were 5-star shows. But that is the level that, I mean, Robin's work, I think, is really exhilarating and exciting, but there's room for growth. there's room for development. Even this show has doubled in size, doubled in impact, doubled in what it can achieve. So that level of determination that she's got, if you just throw a 5-star review at it, I don't think you're being truthful about it. I think it's got room to go further.
I think you're right, Charles, but we're living in a world where people have different expectations of reviews. I would say that this sounds like a great show. I think I might actually enjoy it. And, you know, I'm not a massive fan of stage musicals.
No, you're not. No. Well, which I can understand. A lot, you know, musicals.
A lot of cheese,
I don't think they're mum.
A lot of average songwriting, and usually a fairly flimsy plot.
This is fun to watch. It's fun to watch. It's fun to listen to. It's colourful. It's characterful. And I mean, I've obviously probably in recent years, the things that I have most seen has been musicals. Now, the younger child would be saying, I wouldn't want that to be the most regular thing that I see. I still would say that my preference would remain an extraordinarily moving play. But the fact is that musicals are the art form, and I'm going to use that word, that are most commercially viable in the West End. And there has to be significance in that, Graham. So within that, you're looking for quality, and you're looking for new people to come in and with fresh perspectives and fresh ideas, which is exactly what happened with Six the musical, and is exactly what has happened here with Unfortunate the musical. It happened with Rent the musical before that. It happens with Spring Awakening. You get musicals that come in and radically shift the perspective of what you can achieve with musicals. So I think it's a bit glib to decry them as a lesser art form. I mean, art, you could.
Well,
you know, obviously, if one's going to be elitist about it, I mean,
musicals are like.
Well, they grew out of opera, didn't they? Basically, they grew out of opera. That's the starting point for musical theatre, growing out of opera.
To my mind, musicals are a bit like pop music. A lot of pop music is rubbish, but some pop music is gloriously brilliant. So that's a bit like musicals in my book. So I'm not saying you can't do great musicals. I'm not saying they're always unenjoyable. But anyway, I think we should move on because I think we've made the point about Unfortunate. It sounds like it's a great show.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't seen it yet, but your time will come, Graham. Now, next topic.
We're not going to do Punk because we're out of time.
Quick interruption before we do anything else.
I just want to say that when I poo-pooed Viggo Mortensen's directorial, I think it's his debut, The Dead Don't Hurt, which I saw the other week, the sort of Scandi Western starring Viggo himself. When I poo-pooed that as being well acted and looked great, but sort of lacked any real purpose or point. Well, it turns out I'm in a minority of one in that viewpoint because all the rest of the film critic reviews have been uniformly 4-star reviews, Charles.
Why? What have they said? How do they differ from you? And why are they wrong, Graham?
Well, I read the Sight and Sound one, and Sight and Sound's been going for forever. Yeah. It's owned by the BFI, so it's Britain's best and
it's the Bible of film reviewing from that point of view.
Yeah. What critics tend to do is that first of all they judge a film by does it tick the right boxes for modern audiences and modern thinking, and if it does, well, you're already halfway there to getting a good review. The next thing is they judge the film by the narrative and by the acting largely. So they'll spend a lot of the review analysing what the script says and what the characters do and how it's acted. And if the script in theory is an interesting story and the acting's good, again, you get a great review then. The one thing these critics aren't doing is judging it by, is it believable? Does it make sense? Do the ideas add up? Do the ideas that it contains, are they actually fully developed to the point where it's got depth and it's got 3 or 4 dimensions? And that's what used to happen in film criticism until about 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I would say that I was judging that film by how critics used to judge films. And the reason that everybody else doesn't agree with me on The Dead Don't Hurt is because they're now thinking like modern reviewers. So basically, I was reviewing it like someone would have reviewed it in 1974.
Or Derek Malcolm might have reviewed it. Yeah.
Yeah, Derek was a bit dry. I'm quite passionate about films, and I get inspired by films that are truly great or that have really interesting meanings.
Yeah.
And the British film criticism has always been a bit dry, and Derek was a bit dry as well, although he was a great writer and a great man.
He was. So, Graham, you're not revisiting your review and changing your mind. You're sticking.
No,
with...
I'm sticking to. I'm
You're
sticking
sticking
to
with
my
it,
guns in my
so
holster.
you're sticking to your guns, and basically for you, it's Viggo Mortensen's first film and last film potentially. If you had
Well,
your set.
no, it definitely shows talent. So
Right,
I'm
okay.
just saying that he needs to direct his talent better than he directed it. I don't mean as a director. I mean he needs to
Yeah,
channel his talent into something with more depth and more meaning.
yeah. I was being flippant in saying that. So let's see what he does next. Now, Graham, our finishing piece is that old punks never die, which technically, obviously, is not true. God bless so many punks who have done exactly that. But Leeds mini legends now, Cowton came
Cowtown,
back.
Cowtown,
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 Cowtown came back from the
Cowtown.
dead to prove the point at Leeds Brudenell Social Club. So their resurrection was
Yeah.
when, Graham? And why did you see them? And when did you first see them before that to want to see them resurrected?
Well, I'd seen them in Leeds like about good grief 10 years ago or more because they've been going for quite a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And I booked them to play at a charm light that I used to
Ah,
organise
I thought
regularly.
that would be the case. Yeah.
So they played at Major Tom's Social in Harrogate in 2015 for me, and they were absolutely
Mm,
brilliant because they were a three-piece, and the drummer and the singer Jonathan Nash was also a member of Hookworms, who were the
oh,
last great hopes of the Leeds indie scene
yes.
until finally Yard Act actually made it big and
Yeah.
were the first Leeds
Mm,
band to break through properly since Kaiser Chiefs.
mm,
And they were a great band. They had a sort of krautrock groove, but they were less hard work than krautrock can
mm,
be, and more groovy, and you could dance them. So, and they were full of energy and no bullshit, absolutely no bullshit whatsoever. And
mm.
pardon my French for any listeners under the age of 16, which we've probably got loads of them. But
Mm.
so I love Cowtown, but I hadn't seen them for years. Then I went to another gig, Brudenell Social Club in Leeds recently, and I bumped into Jonathan, the lead singer, and had a
Yeah.
chat. And it turns out they've just released their first album in 8 years, having toured with the likes of Deerhoof, who are a great American band. And he
Oh,
was really
yes.
nervous about the gig because it was the first album in 8 years, and he's older now. And he said, like, when I was
Mm,
younger, I just go on stage and just do it. And now I worry
mm,
about how good we are and am I good enough.
yeah.
And I
Mm,
thought, good grief, that's really bizarre because Cowtown never appeared like that. And they're such a
no.
great band. And they've also really supported Brudenell Social Club over the years,
Mm,
so, which is why they were playing there rather than somewhere else because they love the venue and the venue loves them.
yeah.
And the new
So,
album's called
Graham,
Fear Off. It's sweetened by Cargo Records, and it
yeah.
sees them go back to their punk rock roots. So it's much more 3 minute punk rock, acerbic, you know, interesting lyric type songs rather than their more groovy crowd rock numbers.
How did the crowd receive them? And was it? Could you see progression
Older
from
crowd,
the in the
but just as
old
older
crowd, which is
crowd,
a
but just as good as ever.
yeah, yeah,
And also, I think they went back to the punk roots because you've bands like Idols and
yeah,
even Yard Act because
yes. Mm,
the sort of krautrock style is slightly gone out of fashion again. It's,
mm,
it's bands who are guitar bands and who are never going to be huge bands now.
mm.
They're all a bit punky.
And new songs, could you sense how the progression had been in those 8 years since the last album?
Well, yeah, it's almost a return to basics, and it's more about
Yeah,
songwriting and less about the groove. So they were a bit like a sort of like modern version of Percy, that great York band that I also saw the other week
yeah,
when
yeah.
they came to Harrogate.
Mm,
You know, they're still staying true to Leeds' lo-fi indie non-establishment roots.
mm. Splendid. Well, Graham, we're into our last minute now. You've got a chance and an opportunity for the briefest interruption you've ever done.
I saw this terrible British comedy called The Phantom of the Open about an amateur golfer who played in the British Open under an
Yeah.
assumed name. And I assumed it would be terrible, like all those sort of
Yes.
films like Brastoff, Phil Monty, Ed Eagle are sort of, like heartwarming British comedies. Ugh.
Yeah.
But even though this was all the cliches you'd expect, Matt Ryland starred as the amateur golfer from Lancashire. And he was so good that I end up loving the film. And it's The Phantom of the Open. Even the title's not good. But
It's not.
he's so
I
good
saw
in
that
that.
film. We're into our last
Yeah.
minute, and I absolutely agree with you. I can't remember when I saw it, but because of Mark
Mm.
Rylance, I absolutely loved it. I loved
He
his
was so
attitude
good.
towards his attitude to golf was one. Quite right,
It
Graham.
was
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.